start with, I'm going to show you some of the ways that I prep pages ahead of time in my Hobonichi. And I'm using Distress Oxide inks by Ranger and stencils that are my own stencils that I carry in my Etsy shop. For my applicator, I'm using a homemade one with a fat dowel rod with the hook end of the Velcro stapled to it. And then that attaches nicely to these foam pads that I keep on the bottom of each ink pad. Each color has its own pad. And I'm just using that to apply the Distress Oxide ink through my stencil. This stencil is my math class stencil. Now I'm choosing one of the squares out of my 9-patch stencil and using a different color of Distress Oxide and adding it in a few places, switching to a blue and using another one of the 9-patch circles to do some more stenciling. Going on to another page and another stencil. This time I'm using my Scribble Circles stencil to apply some pink ink. And I'm also using the ink to go around the edge to make a border on the page. Now that look is fine just like that, but I love the Distress Oxide ability to spritz water on it and to pick up some of the color, giving it kind of a blotchy look, and I really enjoy that effect. And I like using the Distress Oxide inks in the Hobonichi. They don't bleed through and they just give kind of a background. You can write on top of the stenciled areas and just gives kind of a nice background decoration to the page without adding any bulk to it. Flipping to another page that I've started decorating, and I'm just adding some stenciling to it using my math class stencil again. Going back with another color with the pink and kind of blending it in. I'm pulling out yet another one of my 9-patch stencil designs and adding it to this page. I already put some collage elements from my last Patreon collage set on here, so I'm just adding a little bit of stenciling to it. And now I'm using my folk heart stencil to decorate February's page. Since that stencil doesn't reach all the way to the edge, I'm adding some watercolor to extend those lines because I'm going to want to write my goals for the month on these rays that are going out from the heart. So I want to make sure I have plenty of room there. So I'm even adding in a couple extra ones. This is another way that I use the folk heart stencil. This time I'm using a liquid frisket on there with a cosmetic sponge, and it will actually block the watercolor. So I'm using the frisket through the stencil, and then after it dries, I'll watercolor over it. Once you've applied the Frisket thoroughly through the stencil, then you can peel the stencil up and set it aside. And once your Frisket is good and dry, then it will serve as a resist to put watercolor on top of. And that makes a neat effect. It gives kind of a reverse stencil effect. Then once your watercolor is dry, you just simply peel that Frisket up. And I'm using a special Frisket remover, kind of eraser type thing. But you can also just use your fingers to rub it away. Now I'm just going back in with some watercolor with my paintbrush and lettering in the day of the week at the top of the page. And I look forward to getting to this page because I think it'll be fun to use. To clean the stencil, I'm just rolling off that Frisket. It comes off really easily. Now I've pulled out my watercolors again. I'm not using a stencil this time, but I'm just painting some real simple trees. We often think of winter trees as not being very pretty, but I was actually realizing they're really quite beautiful when you can see the shapes of the branches clearly, and I just love they're so enduring through the winter. So I just thought I'd paint those on this page. It was kind of prompted by the colors on the little page or the date number block that's in the corner. And so I just took a little time out to paint this page, and it was really fun to do and quick and easy. Going back to a January page and to the sunflower that I had stenciled, and going back over it with some watercolor. I just wanted it to pop a little bit more, not be quite as much in the background. When I first made it, I thought I might want to write on top of it, but now as I get to that page, I realize I just really would like that pop of sunflower on the page. So I'm first working back over it with some watercolor. And then I'll dry that. And then I'm pulling the original stencil back out, and I'm going to do another layer of color on top of it. And I'm using gouache this time. I really like gouache. Is much more opaque than watercolor, so that makes it a little bit more of a bold statement, which was what I was after with the sunflower. So I'm using it, but the gouache, and this happens to be acrylic gouache, so it will not reactivate like watercolor does or regular gouache does. But it does make a matte surface that is easy to work on top of. Still not satisfied, so I'm adding in some more watercolor to it, just building layers and layers until it gets to where I want it to be. Then I take my favorite fountain pen, and it's filled with Lexington Gray Noodler's ink inside of it, and I love this ink because it's waterproof. Yet this page is still slightly damp, and I don't have to worry about working on top of it with the ink. It's not going to ruin the tip. And I really like the look of this gray ink, and I use it quite a bit. Here you can see me doing some lettering with it too, and doing the writing on the page with it. So it's a little bit bolder tip than some of my fine tip pens, but I do really like it, and it just seems a little less stark than black ink sometimes, and I really like it for sketching and writing as well. I love the little trick of making multiple lines, multiple squiggly lines when I can't be bothered with making a straight line, and then kind of painting in where those little gappy places are, where the lines overlap. And I kind of like the look of that, and it's a lot quicker and easier than pulling out a ruler and being careful to make a straight line. I'm just going back and finishing up some pages that didn't feel quite done to me, adding little bits of watercolor here. You can see here why I like to use a waterproof pen to do my writing with, so that I can go back and add watercolor and not worry about it smearing. So I'm just kind of playing with this here. I find using watercolor very relaxing. First month using my Hobonichi 2021, and I thought I'd just take you through the pages so far, kind of give you an update on how things are going. Some of these pages I've already shown in previous videos, so I'll just flip through kind of quickly. But these are the weekly pages. I love how they've been working for me. Still kind of doing a little bit experimenting with them, but I'm pretty settled in to a format that works well for me. I have found that though overall I'm trying to use less stickers, this is the kind of the place where I'm enjoying using all these little stickers, kind of filling in some of the empty places. So that takes through January. And then if we flip back here to the daily pages, this was my goals for the year. This was, every month has a page to begin the month, and so that's a place I write my goals, some things I want to get done in the month. So it's fun to look back and see how well those have gone. And then I jump into my daily pages, and I don't really have any hard and fast rule about what these are. They're just kind of whatever, part sketchbook, part memory keeping, part record keeping, place for ideas and sketches and trying swatches and trying things out. And I have been just kind of doing a lot of playing, especially with watercolor, seeing how it works on these pages, which I've really enjoyed. I also try out some ideas for my patrons. Here's a list of ideas for YouTube videos. I tried out some pins in here, did some pin reviews, kind of recording some art that I've made. So I've done some stenciling in here. So there's some more stenciling. I did a whole series of watercolor houses. These are printed on washi sticker paper, which I like because it's really thin, but I had to spray a fixative on it because it turns out that the ink will kind of rub off. I've done some sketching. Oops. These last pages are not quite finished up yet. I've got some writing to do in it, but otherwise they're done. I've kind of settled into a format I like for the weekend. On Saturdays I kind of give at least a little section of the week in review, kind of what some of the high points are, and even like some numbers of things that I keep track of, whether it be COVID or followers or whatever it is. And then on Sundays I've been doing my scripture verse in a column like would be in a journaling Bible, and then have some place to write here. I've really been enjoying using watercolor in here. I used a Moleskine daily planner last year, and it does not take watercolor well, so I have been loving using watercolor in this. And then I'm ready for February. This is my goals page. I used my own folk art stencil on here, and then I'm writing the goals in here, so I'm excited to get started on another month. This was an image that my patrons got, and as were these. So then I'm just ready to jump into a new month.